had always wanted to see more of America, beyond the big cities and the tourist spots. My first trips were to New York and Los Angeles, where everything seemed to be designed for people like me, visitors who wanted to be impressed. But I kept hearing that the real America was somewhere in the middle, in the small towns that had been there for centuries, shaped by faith, tradition, suspicion of outsiders, and an almost stubborn attachment to their own way of life. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I wanted to experience it. I thought I was looking for authenticity. I didn't realize at the time that I was also walking into a story that would never really leave me. I had been driving across the Midwest for a week when I first saw the town. It wasn't on my map, at least not on the digital one. I had been following a scenic back route that was supposed to reconnect me with the highway after 50 miles. Instead, after an hour of empty cornfields, I came across a green road sign with peeling paint that said, Ashford to 6 miles. I slowed down. I had never heard of it, but it felt like an opportunity. My gas tank was low, and my throat was dry from the sun pressing through the windshield. A town was exactly what I needed. The road narrowed, curving into a valley that was shaded by old oak trees. When I reached Ashford, I noticed how quiet it was. There were maybe 3 streets, lined with wooden houses, that looked older than anything I had seen outside of New England. Their paint had faded, their porches sagged, but there was care in the details. Lace curtains in the windows, wind chimes, little American flags stuck in flower pots. A white church with a steeple rose at the center, and next to it stood a general store with a hand-painted sign. I parked near the store and stepped out. The air smelled faintly of smoke, like someone was burning leaves nearby, though it was summer. I went inside, and the first thing I noticed was how everyone turned to look at me. There weren't many people, just an old woman near the register, a tall man in overalls, and a girl restocking shelves, but their eyes lingered on me long enough that I felt heat in my neck. I greeted them, and after a long pause, the girl nodded back. The store sold a mix of everything: canned food, tools, postcards that looked like they had been printed decades ago. I asked if there was a gas station in town. The tall man scratched his chin and said the pumps had been out for years. Then the old woman spoke, her voice surprisingly strong. Visitors don't usually stop here. She didn't sound hostile, just factual. I explained I was driving across the country, just passing through, and thought I'd take a look. She studied me, then smiled, showing small, yellowed teeth. You'll want to stay at the inn, then. No sense driving on with the sun dropping. I glanced outside. The light wasn't dropping yet, but I didn't argue. I asked where the inn was, and the girl pointed toward the far edge of town. Big white house with columns, you can't miss it. I thanked them and bought a bottle of water. As I turned to leave, the man in overalls said, almost casually, don't walk around too late. Streets get confusing at night. The inn did stand out. It was larger than the other houses, 3 stories tall, with faded green shutters and a wraparound porch. I knocked, and after a while, the door opened to reveal a man in his 50s, dressed neatly in a vest and tie, as if he had been expecting me. Welcome, he said. We don't see many travelers anymore. You'll find the place comfortable. His accent was local, his words precise. He showed me to a room on the 2nd floor with a high ceiling, antique furniture, and a quilt on the bed that smelled faintly of cedar. I remember thinking that it felt less like a hotel and more like stepping into someone's home. The wallpaper was patterned with faded roses, the floorboards slanted slightly, and the mirror above the dresser was spotted with age. I set down my bag and asked if there was dinner nearby. The innkeeper said the diner was closed that day, but that he could bring me a plate from the kitchen. I agreed, and soon I was eating stew and cornbread alone in the dining room, listening to the faint ticking of a grandfather clock. After dinner, I decided to walk through the town. The sun was low by then, painting the houses in orange light. I noticed how few people were around. The same girl from the store passed me without speaking, carrying a basket of laundry. A man sat on his porch, rocking slowly, staring into the distance. When I greeted him, he didn't reply. I wandered toward the church, its white paint glowing in the last light. The door was unlocked, so I stepped inside. The air was cooler there, heavy with dust and the faint scent of old wood. The pews were narrow, and the altar was bare except for a cross and a book. I flipped it open, expecting a Bible, but the pages were blank. Every single one. I closed it quickly, unsettled, and left. Back at the inn, the hallway seemed darker than before. My room was the only one with a light on. As I prepared for bed, I heard faint footsteps upstairs. I thought it must be another guest, though I hadn't seen anyone else. The sound stopped abruptly when I opened my door to check. The hallway was empty. That night, I dreamed I was walking through the town again, only this time the houses were abandoned, their windows dark, their doors hanging open. I felt someone behind me, but whenever I turned, the street was empty. I woke up sweating, though the room was cool. The next morning, the innkeeper served me breakfast. He asked politely if I had slept well. I hesitated, then said yes. He smiled as if he knew I was lying. I asked him about the blank book in the church. For a moment, he looked confused, then said, "The good book has many pages. Sometimes they're just waiting to be written." His words made no sense to me. I decided to leave town that morning, but when I reached my car, the engine wouldn't start. The battery was dead. I cursed under my breath and went back to the inn to ask if someone could help. The innkeeper suggested I wait a day. Sometimes, he said, things had a way of fixing themselves. He offered me another night at a discount. I agreed reluctantly, not seeing much choice. That day, I walked farther beyond the main street, past barns and fields that seemed untouched for decades. I found a cemetery on a hill, its stones weathered and tilted. Most of the dates ended in the same year, 1899. The names repeated across generations: Collins, Weaver, Ashford. I noticed one grave larger than the rest, marked only with the word founder. No first name, no dates. As I stood there, I felt watched. Turning, I saw the girl from the store at the edge of the trees, holding her basket again, though now it was empty. She didn't move closer. I raised my hand in greeting, but she turned and walked back into the woods without a word. That evening, the innkeeper invited me to join what he called a gathering at the church. "It's important to share in our traditions," he said. I hesitated, but curiosity won. The church was fuller than before, nearly every pew occupied. Families sat together, their faces solemn. There was no preacher. Instead, the old woman from the store stood at the front. She spoke of remembering the past, of keeping faith with the ones who built the town. Her voice carried easily in the room. Then she opened the blank book and began to read aloud, as if the pages were filled with words only she could see. The others listened with bowed heads. I felt a chill crawl up my arms. When the reading ended, everyone stood in silence for several minutes. Then, without speaking, they filed out into the night. I lingered, staring at the book, but the girl from the store touched my arm. "You shouldn't stay," she whispered. Her eyes were wide, almost pleading. I wanted to ask why, but she slipped away before I could. Back in my room, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the cemetery, the book, the way the townspeople watched me. Around midnight, I heard footsteps again, heavier this time, moving slowly past my door. I waited for them to fade, but they stopped right outside. My breath caught. After a long pause, the floorboards creaked as if someone leaned against the door. Then nothing. I didn't open it. The next morning, the car started as if nothing had been wrong. The innkeeper smiled when I told him I was leaving. "You'll carry Ashford with you now," he said. I didn't understand, but I didn't ask. I just drove, watching the town shrink in my rearview mirror until it vanished between the trees. I thought that was the end of it, but weeks later, in another state, I opened my glove compartment to look for a map. Inside, I found a small, leather-bound book I had never seen before. Its pages were blank. I sat in the driver's seat with the little book open on my lap, staring at the emptiness of its pages. My first thought was that someone from Ashford must have slipped it into my car without me noticing. But how? The innkeeper had no reason, the girl no chance, and yet it was here, in my glove compartment, waiting for me, as though it belonged there. I turned the book over. Its cover was dark brown leather, worn soft with age. The stitching along the spine was uneven, as if it had been repaired more than once. On the inside of the back cover, scratched faintly into the leather, was a single word, witness. I felt my mouth go dry. I told myself I should throw it away. Leave it in the motel trash, forget about it. Pretend Ashford had been nothing more than a strange detour. But when I tried to close it and set it aside, my hand didn't move. I kept turning pages, searching for some hidden writing, some clue. All I found was the occasional faint indent, as if someone had once written hard against the surface, and then erased everything, leaving only ghosts of letters I couldn't decipher. That night I dreamed again. I was walking down the main street of Ashford, but the houses were closer this time, leaning inward as though the street itself were narrowing. The windows were open, and from everyone came the whisper of pages turning. I looked down and saw the blank book in my hands, but now words were crawling across the paper as if written by an invisible hand. I woke with my heart pounding, the book beside me on the bed, though I was sure I had left it on the desk. 4 days afterward, I tried to ignore it. I kept driving west, stopping in small towns, eating at diners, sleeping in roadside motels. But wherever I went, the book seemed to intrude. Once, when I opened my suitcase, it was lying on top of my clothes. Another time, I found it slipped beneath the windshield wiper of my car, as though left there by someone passing by. I began to feel that carrying it was easier than resisting. The first real change came a week later. I was sitting in a laundromat in Kansas, waiting for my clothes to dry. Out of boredom, I opened the book again. For the first time, I saw words. Only a few, faint as pencil marks, spread across the top of one page. Do not look back. My chest tightened. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, the words were gone. The page was blank. I didn't tell anyone. Who could I tell? I had no close friends in this part of the country, no family nearby, and strangers wouldn't believe me. Still, the words haunted me. Do not look back. What did it mean? Back to Ashford, back in time, back at something following me. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. That exhaustion or stress had made me see what wasn't there. But then the dreams returned. In one, I stood in the cemetery again, staring at the grave-marked founder. This time the earth trembled, and a crack split the stone, revealing not bones, but stacks of blank books beneath the soil, all identical to the one I carried. Their pages fluttered, though there was no wind, and the whisper of turning pages grew so loud it filled the sky. I woke with a gasp, clutching the book in my arms, as though I had been protecting it in my sleep. That morning, I decided to test it. I bought a pen at a gas station and tried writing my name on the first page. The ink sank into the paper, but when I blinked, the letters dissolved, fading until the page was white again. I tried writing other words, random sentences, notes, even drawings, but each one disappeared within seconds. It was as though the book rejected my attempts, preserving its emptiness. Yet faintly, under certain angles of light, I thought I could see shapes just beneath the surface, like something written deep in the fibers. The more I tried to ignore it, the more it pulled at me. When I left it in the glove compartment, I felt uneasy until I checked it again. When I carried it, my hand tingled faintly, as if the leather was warm to the touch. I began to notice small changes in myself too. A tendency to pause in the middle of a street, staring behind me though no one was there. A difficulty focusing on conversations, because part of my mind was always on the book. 2 weeks after leaving Ashford, I stopped at a diner on the edge of Oklahoma. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, poured my coffee and froze. Her gaze fell to the book lying beside my plate. "Where'd you get that?" she asked quietly. I lied, saying I had found it at a thrift store. She shook her head slowly. "You shouldn't carry it. Folks don't understand what that means, but I've seen one before." Her voice dropped lower. "Back when I was a girl, a traveler came through with a book like that. Stayed a night, left in the morning, never seen again. But weeks later, his car was found by the river, doors open, engine running, no trace of him. Just that same book on the passenger seat." My skin prickled. I wanted to ask more, but another customer called her, and when she returned, she avoided looking at me. That night, in the motel, I tried to throw it away. I walked to the dumpster, dropped it in, and forced myself back inside without looking over my shoulder. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was free, but just before dawn, I woke with a start. The book was resting on my chest. I sat up, trembling, and opened it. A new line had appeared on the center of the page. "It is written when you sleep." That was when I realized the book wasn't empty. It was filling itself slowly, in ways I couldn't always see, writing a story in silence and shadows. Whose story? I didn't know. The days that followed blurred. I drove aimlessly, unable to plan, stopping wherever the road ended. I avoided people, because I feared they would notice the change in me, the way I glanced behind me constantly, the way I sometimes muttered lines from the book without realizing. The entries grew longer, though never in my own handwriting. Sometimes they were warnings, sometimes fragments of prayers, sometimes names I didn't recognize. Collins, Weaver, Ashford, the same names carved in the cemetery stones. One night, near the border of New Mexico, I dreamed again of the church. The pews were empty except for myself, but the old woman stood at the front, holding the book. She looked at me and said, "You've carried it far enough. Now you must return." When I woke, the same words had appeared on the book's page, "Return." I don't know what they mean by return. To Ashford, to the cemetery, to the founder's grave. All I know is that every mile I drive west feels heavier, as though invisible threads are tugging me backward. I know I want nothing more than to escape. I can't shake the feeling that the book is not just following me, it is leading me. I am afraid that one day I will open it and see the end of the story written there, waiting for me, in words I cannot erase.